Hi, my name is Gama Cancino, project manager with Rivendale Home. Today we're at 1301 Route and we'll be talking about foundations. When it comes to home building, one of the most expensive things that you're gonna do is pay for a foundation. That's where everything on your house sits on. And there's a lot of things that go into that. It goes from forms to bringing in fill, to checking in with your engineer, making sure the right size the rebar is, making sure your showers, if you have a straw shower, is dropped. I want to talk to you more about that today and just give you some insight on what it takes to build a really solid foundation that will last a lifetime. To Agustin Flores from Flores Contracting. You want to tell us a little bit of who you are and what you do?
Hey, my name's Agustin. I'm the owner of Flores Contracting. What we do is we do foundations. We make sure that, before we get to the site, that we have all the pins. After that, we check that everything is squared. Before we set our forms, we try to make sure that, all the pins have the correct measurements. And if there's something wrong, will we either reach out to the builder or we reach out to the surveyor.
When we say foundation, right, most people just think about going to a lot and see a big block of concrete, right? But there's so many steps that go through that, and one of them that you just mentioned was at the very beginning, right? Making sure that you're setting your envelope, your building envelope, which are pins. They're little nails that the surveyor comes out there. What stage are we on now on this one?
Right now we're setting the drops for the patios, as you can see back there. The patio over there, this patio here. Got the showers. They still need a little bit of work. Once the guys come back from lunch, they'll get those done. And that one over there, we've got the shower in there too for the pool house. And I believe that's another cassette over there, right?
Yeah, that's gonna be like a outdoor living space. Well, a couple things there you mentioned, the rebar, right? And when we say rebar, we mean these little sticks, right, are kind of tied in together. Can you explain or help us understand, like, what's the whole point of rebar? Maybe what are the different sizes and why does a foundation need them?
There's different sizes. There's, you've got from number 3 to about number 8 or 9. There's bigger, which we don't really use here in these residential settings. And the purpose of the rebar is to help concrete reinforce itself, make it stronger. Because concrete alone, it can break. It doesn't have a lot of tensile strength, and that's what the rebar is for. The rebar number 4 and number 3 are mostly used for like flat work. That's what they're used for. That's where you'll see it the most. That's why here on this one.
For your driveways and patios.
Yeah, and then since this one's like a 4.5-inch thick slab, it's mostly common that you'll see number 4. Either way, whenever the plans call for number 3s, we don't try to use it. I just don't like number 3s. We like number 4.
Just go ahead and upgrade it. It gives you safety. You like number 4s better.
Yeah, we like number 4s better, definitely. It's just, even when you step on it, you can tell the difference, Yeah.
Well, on this rebar, I see a couple things here, like, for example, I've noticed one that you have these pieces of brick here. I know that's intentional, right?
That's to basically keep the rebar off the ground, as the rebar needs to be midway through the slab. So whenever you've got like I said, a 4.5-inch slab, those are about 2 1/4. So they're right at they're right at halfway through the concrete.
So that way the rebar basically floats and it's in between the concrete, right? Not below it, not above it, but right in the middle to help it gain strength, right? Okay, cool. And also notice just a couple other details here that you have, like this little wire here. What's the purpose of this little tie here? What is this called and what's it do?
Well, the purpose of it is to keep the rebar together. That way you can tie your top bar or your bottom bar. That's what it's for.
And the same thing with these ones that are going in between these beams, right? It's tying them together.
Again, the purpose of those ties are like either way, even though you have those bricks over there to keep that rebar mat up, you still need to tie these beams to it. That way they get lifted up. Yeah. Because if you don't tie them to that top bars, what they do is, they're just going to be on the ground.
You don't want that. You don't want it to be on the ground.
No, you don't want it to be on. You could put a lot of bricks under it, but it's not.
Yeah, you want it, same concept, right? You want it inside the concrete, not above it or below it. I guess the main reason we're tying it all together, although these are many individual parts, right? Many pieces of rebar, but once you're tying it together, you're kind of making a big structure out of it, right?
Yep, you're solidifying it.
So it makes it just a little bit stronger overall, right? That way it kind of acts all as one unit, right?
That's correct.
One thing that I was thinking about, was, the formwork, right? Basically, can you tell us what the forms are and how you basically make sure that everything's in place whenever you are doing the forms?
So, the forms, are used to keep the concrete in place. The way we ensure that everything is plumb, we start by putting like some uprights on each corner, which those guide us. Once we know, we use a level, so once those are, you know, nice and plumb, from there we use a string line, and the rest, you'll have that line for the rest of your uprights, and then from there, you know, you just nail them. What we also do is, like I mentioned earlier, we check that everything is squared. We use something that we used in school. Do you remember what it was?
I'm guessing it's A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
That's correct.
What is this, Pythagorean theorem?
But we just make sure, what you got to do is make sure you have the same measurement that way, same measurement this way, and then you square it off. That's how. And then all these jog outs, they come in after that. Yeah. As long as you have all your four corners, everything's a perfect square. Yeah. You just use your tape, measure everything, and
yeah.
Make sure that.
Yeah, because you know what the architect does, right? He does the layout of the foundation, basically, right? Says, this is what I want in this lot, and then the surveyor takes that information and lays out the 4 pins, and then you can do your exterior measurements, right? And so in that process, you're verifying a lot of measurements, right? And I know one thing that you do is you check, right? You check for your latest plans, you check for all that. What are some things that you do internally for your system to make sure that you're putting the foundation at the right place? You know?
So for one, you know, we depend a lot on the surveyor making sure that he put the pins on the correct place, but sometimes they're not in the correct place. That's why, like I said, whenever we first get here, what we do is we measure our distances from pins to pins. And if they're within like a quarter, then it's just, you know, kind of like adjusting it. We also check on the site plan. They'll see, in case, let's say a pin's off by 2 inches, in case we got to shift, you know, that way we know where to shift the foundation. Check the site plan so I can see that we have enough room in between the building lines. That way we can shift it to the correct place. Sometimes a lot of the surveyors, they don't only put envelope corners, they put them on every corner. I mean, we don't really like that because then at the end of the day, you don't really know which one is right. It might be that these 4 are right and that one's wrong and that one's wrong, and then it's really hard. So we prefer, honestly, the envelope corners.
So less is more when it comes to that. And then, because, you know, I was just thinking about like how expensive to do a foundation is, right? Can you imagine putting a wall wrong or something like that? It could be a tremendous cost. That's why it's so important to have somebody that knows what they're doing, right? Always that cross-checking and verifying. I think you do a very good job of that.
These forms, whenever you set them, they don't always just stay straight all the time. You've got the machinery coming in here, you know, you're digging the beams. Sometimes they get moved a little bit, but whenever they're done digging their beams, we double check, triple check again, we fix forms. So, I mean, it's just part of the process.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of internal checks, right? You're checking, you're the surveyor, the project manager's checking measurements. Yep. Plumbers got to check as well. What about the city? You know, what kind of inspections do you go through, or what type of requirements does the engineer require of you? Can you talk more about that process?
So as far as city inspections, form survey, that's the easiest way to check if something's off. You know, once they get the form survey, they can tell you if we're within the building lines or we're outside. So, I mean, it's...
Yes, usually I get it, next day, most of the time.
I mean, at that point, it's pretty easy to fix a mistake, you know.
Form survey is basically, once you do your forms, we call those pieces of wood here forms, right? That do the shell of the house. Then a surveyor will come out here and he will basically give us the measurement of your forms. This is good information. Right now we can check the plans to make sure that it's right. But also gives us the height. You know, what we call the finished floor elevation. And that height is very important because within the city, we can't build up to a certain point, right?
Yep.
It's called like a McMansion rule. Just once we get it, we send it to you too to review, right? That goes back to that idea of like, we're reviewing it, but we want you to review it too.
Yeah.
The more eyes, the better, right? So we work as a team there.